Good morning, everybody. Boker Tov. Thank you for joining us for our Kabbalah Café today in Yerushalayim at 9:30 a.m. We look forward to seeing everybody here every Kabbalah Café, every Friday morning and every morning, B'ezrat Hashem. And of course on Shabbos at Chabad. First of all, I want to thank Gershom and Rachel Dandy for sponsoring this special edition of Kabbalah Café in honor of the Refuah Shalema of our dear friend Jay Schechter, Yoshua Mordechai Ben Fega. May Hashem send you Refuah Shalema immediately. Amen. Yoshua Mordechai Ben Fega. Thank you to Mordechai and Raya for broadcasting the Kabbalah Café. I would like to begin with a story that happened this week with two of my friends. One friend is a Shliach in Basel, Switzerland. His name is Rabbi Zalman Vyshetsky, a classmate of mine. And the other friend, his name is Rabbi Yisroel Lieberman, who is a Shliach somewhere out there in Hong Kong. And both great Shluchim. And Rabbi Lieberman and his wife had a baby boy approximately a month and a half ago. But because of the absence of travel, they were unable to bring in a moel to circumcise their young boy. And they've been trying to find all kinds of solutions. And this week, at the beginning of the week, Rabbi Vyshetsky received a phone call from Rabbi Lieberman, and Rabbi Lieberman told him this story, and he says, we have an opportunity now to fly, I think it's 14 or 18 hours, and to come to Basel and to circumcise our son. Can we please do it in your Chabad house? Can we come to you? Can you help us with the arrangements? And of course, Rabbi and Mrs. Vyshetsky were more than happy to welcome their colleague, our colleague and friend, Rabbi and Mrs. Lieberman. They came with their family and they circumcised their son this week. And at the Brit Milah, at the circumcision ceremony, Rabbi Vyshetsky told Rabbi Lieberman, you and your wife remind me of the Meraglim, of the spies in Eretz Yisrael. In what sense? In the sense that when they came to Eretz Yisrael, unfortunately, they had only a bad report to say. And they were all overwhelmed by the giants and the overwhelming circumstances, the negative circumstances that they were exposed to. And they were so overwhelmed that they came back and they said a terrible report of Lashon Hara to Am Yisrael. They got them all scared. But he said, but you too, Rabbi and Mrs. Lieberman, you did not let anything stand in your way. You knew very, very clearly that you are determined to circumcise your son at the earliest possible opportunity. And you can only imagine what kind of trouble they had to go through in order to get to Basel and to circumcise their son. I read this week a very beautiful interpretation that I want to share with you, which has to do with Eretz Yisrael and the spies, and one of the ways to overcome the test that the spies went through. One of the things that the Meraglim, that the spies saw when they came to Eretz Yisrael was the giants, the 4 giants. And they said, oh boy, there's no way that we're ever going to overcome these scary people. And we are taught, the Pasuk says quite clearly, Visham Achiman Talmai, those are 2 of the giants. Now, when we talk about the four giants, they're called Anakim. Anakim in Hebrew, they are giants. And when we say V'gam Yelidei Anak Ra'inu Sham. Now, Kalev, Yehoshua's pal, one of the two individuals who did not get caught up by the plot of the Meraglim, of the spies, Kalev was determined to go to Hebron. In Hebron, he went to visit the Ma'arat HaMachpelah, the cave of the patriarchs. Now, the Talmud says in Baba Kama, in the beginning, the Talmud says that there are four Avot Nezikin. There are four, quote-unquote, fathers of damages. In other words, the Talmud discusses different types of damages, and there are four main, fathers means like main types of damages. That's why it's called fathers. Now, we know that there are three patriarchs, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. But according to the Kabbalah, there are four levels of intellect. When you say an Av means a father, means the highest level of the human being, which is our intellect, Mochin. Remember, we talked a number of times about Chabad, Chokhmah, Bina, and Dat. These are the three levels of intellect which basically control the entire body, or at least they're supposed to control the entire body. How do you have four Avot? Don't we have three patriarchs? Where do you get the four from? So you just have to peek into the Tefillin, and you'll see that there are four Parshiot. There are four portions of the Tefillin. There's the Shema, V'haya im Shamoa, Kadesh, and V'haya ki Yeviacha. How does that fit in with Chabad? Chabad, you have three levels of intellect. Chokhmah, wisdom, Bina, understanding, and Dat, knowledge. The answer is that Dat, which is knowledge, can be divided into two levels, which is the Chesed and Gevura, the two main levels of the Midot. In other words, the objective of the Talmud actually says over there in Bava Kama, Avot Michlal Deika Toldot. When you say that there are fathers, that must mean that there must also be children. When there's a parent, so Bezrat Hashem, there's also children, which means that it's not just enough to learn Torah and to elevate yourself into the highest levels of intellect and learning the Torah, but it has to affect us. It has to affect our emotions. It has to affect our day-to-day lives. So it's not just the three levels of Chokhmah, Bina, and Dat, which correspond to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Rather, there are the Yaakov can be the last level of intellect can be divided into two, which is Chesed and Gevura, the main levels of the emotions. In summary of this point, what are we trying to say? What we're trying to bring out is that the four giants, according to the Kabbalah, are the opposite of the four levels of Avot, of the patriarchs. Everything in the world has the Kedusha, the holy side, opposite verse the Tumah, the Klippa, the unholy side. So basically, in summary, when the Meraglim, when the spies went to Eretz Yisrael, what did they see? They saw the unholy levels of the Avot. The unholy levels of the patriarchs, which I mean to say, the unholy levels opposite, which is countering the patriarchs. Our patriarchs are holy. The Avot, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, were great tzaddikim, and our four matriarchs, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, there's nothing to talk about. They're for sure the greatest tzaddikim. However, when the Meraglim, when the spies came to Eretz Yisrael, unfortunately, Hashem gives us the choice to be able to divide between these, to either choose the Kedusha, the holy part, or to choose the Tumah, the opposite. Zeh le'umat zeh, this one level, opposite the other level. And the Meraglim, unfortunately, they chose to see the opposite. That's why Kalev, he wanted to go to Hebron. And he knew that the Avot HaKdoshim, the Avot, they are going to keep him strong. And they're going to give a message that Am Yisrael needs to come into Eretz Yisrael and stay connected to the Avot. We are all the children of the Avot. We're not allowed to let the opposite of Kedusha to pull us down and to become overwhelmed by different giants, the 4 levels of the giants, which according to the Kabbalah are going against anything which is important to us and to Am Yisrael. So we're not allowed to allow these forces of Tumah to overwhelm us. Rather, we have to make sure we have to stay focused. And in a moment, I'll tell you how to stay focused. But one of the interesting ways for us to counter the opposite of Kedusha, to counter the forces of impurity, is what we said earlier, the Tefillin. How many Parshiot, how many portions do we have rolled up, wrapped up into the Tefillin? 4. Kadesh, V'haya ki yeviacha, Shema, and V'hayayim Shamoa. The 4 portions of the Torah, which we have every weekday, we wrap the Tefillin. This is something which keeps us strong. And this is going to be connected now. I'm going to connect this now to what we say, that to keep Eretz Yisrael to be safe, we need to put on Tefillin. Why? Are you ready for this? Because Tefillin, it says in the Talmud, quoting one of the verses in the Torah, the Yaru Mimeka, that the nations of the world, the enemies of not all nations, in other words, those are the enemies of Eretz Yisrael. When they see the Tefillin on our head, then they will be afraid of us. There's a great story of the Alter Rebbe, where the Alter Rebbe, I'm not sure the details of the story, but basically, when he was in jail, I believe it was, he was able to put on the tefillin. And when he put on the tefillin, that made a tremendous fright. They were the people around him, the enemies of the Alter Rebbe, and the ones that the evil people that put him into prison, they became freaked out. They became all nervous. And so they asked him, what is this all about? So he said, what do you mean? It says in the Talmud that when the Yarumi Mecca, that when the nations of the world, those that counter tzaddikim and Am Yisrael, they will see the tefillin on the head. It says, Elu tefillin shabarosh. When they'll see the tefillin on the head, then they will be afraid and they will run away, they will flee. So they said, what do you mean? We've seen other people put on tefillin. So the Alter Rebbe said, Elu tefillin, doesn't say Elu tefillin al harosh. It refers to the tefillin on the head. It says Elu tefillin shabarosh. This is tefillin which is inside the head. In other words, it's not just the external concept of putting on the tefillin, but rather it's internalizing what the tefillin represents. So if you have tefillin and you don't just put them on, but you internalize, you draw down from Hashem, according to the Kabbalah, these 4 levels of Chachma, Bina, Da'at, and Da'at is divided into 2, which is Chesed and Gevurah, you can really accomplish to freak out all of the enemies of Eretz Yisrael and Am Yisrael, and there should only be peace over here in Eretz Yisrael. So we're getting back to these 4 levels, the 4 levels that the Meraglim, that the spies were intimidated by. These 4 giants, Achimai, Talmai, I forgot all the names of the giants. But the point is that how did they counter? Through the Avot. How can we counter that? Through the Tefillin. Also, these 4 levels, the 4 levels of the 4 portions of the tefillin. When we get other people to put on the tefillin, then we know that we are doing our best to bring Eretz Yisrael, that Eretz Yisrael should be a safe place and a safe Eretz Yisrael. I thought that was a fascinating interpretation according to the teachings of Kabbalah, into one of the insights into the problem of the spies and how Yehoshua and Kalev got over it, and how we can also get over it, as we know that in a number of scenarios that unfortunately there are many people that get caught up with some of the problems with the Meraglim, with the spies. Today too, history repeats itself, unfortunately, in this sense. And so it's up to us to be able to try our best, that we should do our part in also countering not Khalila the Meraglim, but the plot of the Meraglim, the intention of the Meraglim. And so if we can do our best, then we can also bring peace and bracha, shalom, to Eretz Yisrael. I just want to finish off with one more point about how it's possible to stay strong. Because you have to remember that these were great people. These were Yehoshua and Kalev. They were only 2 of all the 12. And so what did Moshe Rabbeinu do? Somehow Moshe understood that it's going to be a tough challenge. So what did Moshe do? He said, I am going to pray for my prize student, Yehoshua. Up until then, his name was Hoshea. From now on, his name was Yehoshua. He put in another Yud. That's a play on words. Ka Yoshiacha. Yud and a Hey is Hashem's name. We don't say it, so we say, as if it says Kuf Hey Ka. Yoshiacha me'atzata meraglim. He prayed for him, may Hashem spare you from the plot of the meraglim of the spies. He didn't wait for them to come back. He knew that there's going to be problems. So what was the point? What was the key of saving Yehoshua and also Kalev, but primarily Yehoshua? That Yehoshua was always bonded. Yehoshua was always connected with Moshe Rabbeinu. When you are bonded, when you are connected with the Moshe Rabbeinu, with the leader of the generation, then you know there's a very, very high chance that you're not going to be caught up with all of the nonsense which happens in the world. Because when we're human beings, we're human beings, and sometimes it's very difficult to stay focused, because Hashem created us with ulterior motives. You look around the world and you see all kinds of stuff. You see all kinds of things which can disturb, which can take a person, God forbid, away from the focus of Torah and mitzvot. So therefore, the more we are connected to the leader of the generation, and we see that from Kalev, that Kalev, first of all, Yehoshua was connected to Moshe Rabbeinu. And Kalev went to say a special tefillah by our forefathers, our patriarchs and matriarchs, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. And they went to their kever, to their resting places, the Marat Machpelah. That was able to keep them both in line. And so this is the message that we have to take from this week's Parsha. Thank you very much for joining us. Tonight, Mincha will be at 7:05 at Chabad of Rechavia. And of course, tomorrow morning, Tehillim, Shabbos Mevarchim, bless the new month of Chodesh Tammuz. We'll say Tehillim at Chabad of Rechavia at 8:30. And then we have a shir at 9 o'clock of Chassidut before we start davening at 9:30. And then we'll have a small Kiddush afterwards. And then, of course, next week, we have learning with Rabbi Diamond at 9:15 on Sunday morning. And then we'll be learning the Pirkei Avot, which will be 9:15 every morning. And Shabbos afternoon from 6 to 7, there will be a shir Pirkei Avot with Shashi for women. I believe it's going to be at the home of Ziva Adler. I think it's on either Tzfat Street, one of those streets right near Narkis. And I'm sure you can send me a message if you want to know where the shir will be. And it's always a great shir with Shashi. And of course, the Beit Midrash, this coming week, it's going to be a full week, our first full week of learning Sundays and Tuesdays in English, 10 to 12, Mondays and Thursdays from 10 to 12 in Hebrew, and Wednesdays 12 to 2 for the women Medrashia. Have a Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for joining us. This was awesome. Be well.